This is like no other. This is the full package.
Hands down, one of the best workouts I've ever done.
I've never seen results like this.
Say I lost about 25 pounds.
15 pounds.
55 pounds. 15 pounds.
30 pounds.
67 pounds.
17.2 pounds.
50 pounds.
Throughout the day, I have more energy.
I'm not tired when I get home at the end of the day.
I feel like I have a lot of energy. I can accomplish a lot.
Energy boost for the day.
I have so much more energy. I'm focused. I'm ready for the day.
I like how this program also focuses on the mental health.
I can already just feel it in my mental capability.
I'm just a little bit more confident.
In my mental clarity.
My stress level has gone way down.
I was diabetic, and I no longer need to take my medications.
My blood pressure has dropped 20 points since I started.
I would say 5 months I was able to get rid of all my medication, and my A1C came down to 5.7.
You're going to see a significant increase in performance, in just overall well-being for the company, and an increase in productivity.
What Future Health has done is help us get our bodies in check and our minds in check and more ready for the problems at hand.
And I saw this as a great way for people to look at themselves and their lives holistically, and at a moment's notice have access to this, really life-changing opportunity, but with as little friction as possible.
I don't get that kind of 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm about to fall asleep feeling.
Everyone around the office has commented that my mood is incredibly more merry.
My focus, my concentration.
Yeah, I have a pretty complex role right now, so my ability to kind of cope with that and stay mindful and present, I've noticed this week has really helped.
When you first came along, you said, well, what is your goal for the year? We set ourselves a goal to win the FAI Cup last season, and we visualized it, we worked on it, we worked towards it, and we did it.
He's about to get his hands on the FAI Cup. It's Drogheda United's Cup.
We set up the goal and we went and we achieved it, and everybody that was part of it obviously has gained great rewards from it.
My name is Monica. I'm 47 years old. I'm a single mom to 4 kids and a puppy.
Sit right there, you're good. You're a good boy.
It's a great feeling at 47 to be confident in my appearance. It's something I haven't felt since I've been in my 20s.
I see a difference. People around me see a difference. Fatigue is down, stress level is down. The way I handle the situations that pop up during the day. Focus is stronger, longer, more productive throughout the day.
If you like to have guidance, this program will work for you.
Yeah, would I recommend it? Absolutely, and I have recommended it to people.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to stop. I want to continue and see how much better results I can get going forward.
Future Wellness has been something that has really changed my life.
Sounds cheesy, but it literally has changed my life and the way I view my body and view health.
You guys have changed my life, seriously, and I've told Christina this.
You've changed my life, Phil.
It's interesting watching the results here. Some of the people there was from a company called Daiquiri that we worked with in the building right here. The results that we got weren't just a few, because you see testimonials from pretty much any program that you've ever seen, but it might only be one person out of 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever that is getting those type of results. And the big thing that we really focused on in the last 10 years is how do we get really meaningful results for the average person? And that's been something that's always been sort of a passion of ours, is what are all the aspects that really seems to get the great results? The biggest feedback that we get from people that we worked with is, can you open up in my area? Downtown is a little bit of a transient place that people tend to come and go. So they might work here for a few years and then they go to New York or San Francisco and they say, oh, are you going to open up in San Francisco? Are you going to open up in New York? And we'd love to, but practically speaking, it was always pretty difficult. And that was always the kind of question that I've had in my mind is, how do we really get this out to more people in more places? And obviously with the pandemic was another big hit where we said, wow, how do we continuously help people when they can't come to us? And so last year we set upon this question to see if we could come up with something. And that's what we're here today to discuss, is the big launch of the new program. How do we improve the person's metabolic health? So we really said, well, what are the aspects, can we replicate this for anyone, anywhere? Because quite frankly, we put a lot of work into all the clients that come to us. And we kind of break it up into 3 stages. So the first stage is education. And that's something I'm really passionate about, because I find that if people truly understand their health, how it works, how nutrition works, how exercise works, that can really have a lasting effect. Because sometimes people will say, oh, I'm supposed to eat this or not eat that, or I'm supposed to do this type of exercise. But if you don't have a really good understanding, then it tends to not last long term. And that's something that we saw with a lot of people, that when we did the education courses and classes with companies and with people that came to us, they seemed to really kind of understand it to the point of view that it becomes more of a lifestyle rather than just a quick fix. And that was a big, huge factor. So that's something that we've worked with pretty much all of this year. So overall, we spent 2 years on this program. It's been a much bigger project than I initially thought. And obviously, I'm going to go into that in a lot more detail today, because I want to show you really a glimpse of that and to see how much of a difference it can really make. Now, having the right information is fantastic, but then the practical application of how you're going to do that on a day-to-day basis was the next step. And that's where we developed a completely customizable app. So we wanted something where you could get everything all customizable in one place. And the great thing with the app is that we put quite a lot of work into this. It doesn't matter where you work out. So whether you can come to us here, whether you go to a local gym, whether you work out at home, we can still customize the diet completely. So for example, you might work out at home and you use bands, so we can do that. And we've recorded over 500 exercises, all different types of equipment, so we can pick the right type of exercise, the right type of equipment that's going to work for you. And the other great thing about the app is that you have this interaction as well, which is the third component, which is your health coach. But we've found that really that human connection and that human touch for the motivation, and also just to make sure that you're getting the best possible results that you can, we still really include that. So on the app, you can communicate directly with your health coach, set up your consultations, chart your progress. So it really is like a complete program. The first thing, though, when it comes to the masterclass is always, well, what is this metabolic health that you're talking about? That's always been, quite frankly, a passion of mine for now 30 years, is how to make people healthier. Now, metabolic health is essentially just your health on a cellular level. So how healthy your cells are. And that can have a profound impact on pretty much any type of results that you want to get. So yes, it's absolutely your metabolism. So it's how much you can burn fat and convert it into energy. But it's so much more than that. So your cells, it's really the mitochondria in the cells that have a profound impact on your health. And that's going to impact everything from blood sugar to blood pressure, even to your brain, because we have actually more mitochondria in the brain than in our bodies. It's way more condensed. And this is something that you probably start to see more and more in the news all the time, is all this thing about metabolic health. So it really is kind of fascinating how much that impacts us. Now, really in the last few years, the science and research, which I'm going to go through some of today, is really interesting, because the things that they thought were just, oh, it's just genetic or it's just a chemical imbalance or any of these other things, they actually now are starting to understand, well, actually it really does come back to the health of your cells. And that's what metabolic health is. So for instance, if you go to your doctor and you want to check out your metabolic health, what they do is they look at a number of things. So the first thing they're going to look at is your waistline, because what they found is that if you have too much fat, in particular around the waistline, and that's visceral fat, internal fat around the organs, that can have a negative effect on your health, in particular around the liver, actually. So that's a huge part of it. The second thing then is your blood sugar, and they're the two things that I focus in on the most, but all of these things are very important, as well as your HDL, your good cholesterol, your blood pressure, and your triglycerides, which is how much fat is actually in the blood. So all these things combined, that when they test people, they test these 5 things, and if 2 or more are out of where they should be, they call that metabolic syndrome. And unfortunately, this is the thing that most people are suffering from, is not having optimum metabolic health. The latest research is showing that of adults in America, we're up to 42%. And that's pre-pandemic, by the way, because a lot of people during the pandemic, I believe the numbers I've seen is on average, the average person's gained about 15 pounds. So you're probably looking at closer to 50%, and that's clinical obesity. And unfortunately, it's not just adults, but even kids. Now it's about 20% in teenagers. So it really is kind of getting out of hand from a health perspective, like I said, especially around the waistline, and that's why they target that area. Because funny enough, having an extra little bit of fat around the body is not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually the type of fat that matters. And that's really a really key component. Then the other aspect is blood sugar. And that is a huge thing that we've gone into in a big way in the metabolic health program, because regulating your blood sugar is vital for health. And it's one of the first things, and it's the thing that I look at the most with people when I'm looking at their health, because when you take in some type of food, obviously sugar, but processed carbs, etc., and you get this blood sugar spike, you get too much blood sugar, and then that's going to have a cascade effect of things like insulin resistance. You're going to end up with a lot of inflammation, etc. So that's another real key component. If you were to hazard a guess of how many people in America today are metabolically healthy, the results might shock you. It's great. This research has only came out this year. It's only a couple of months ago when they looked at that. And what they found was that how many people were metabolically healthy was only 6.8%. So, you know, all the people here were average, but of course you're not average, but like 93% of you would be metabolically unhealthy. Because everybody's in the same boat and we're all going in that direction, it doesn't kind of jump out as something kind of extraordinary. But if you look at it from the point of view, we've been on the planet for 200,000 years as our current incarnation of Homo sapiens, that's in a very short period of time. Literally only in the last 100 to 200 years have we seen this massive decline in our health. Now, metabolic health doesn't just mean things like diabetes and obesity and hypertension, but now they're realizing other diseases as well, even cancer. They're now re-looking at that as a metabolic health disease issue, which is interesting. And then recently, this just came out again a few weeks ago, they realized that even for mental health, they used to think it was just genetic and as a chemical imbalance and that's it. But this kind of theory, it was literally a hypothesis that it might be serotonin, has been debunked. So it's no longer that. And now what they're pointing to is more towards inflammation of the brain. And that is actually the key to why people are suffering from depression a lot. So that's another area. So even mental health and cancer. So all across the board, it really is sort of something that, wow, if you can get your metabolic health up, the knock-on effect is huge. And you're going to protect yourself from all of these issues. But more importantly, you're going to vitally, absolutely transform your quality of life. I mean, I have to be honest, like during the pandemic, I was like, they're not talking about metabolic health as part of whatever measures that they, to kind of protect yourself. Because 95% of people who died from COVID were metabolically unhealthy. So if they had been healthy, their chances of survival would have increased dramatically. So it was one of those things, and I actually released a little video even a month into it, 2 months into it, where I was saying, wow, you know, obviously this thing is really important to try and protect yourself from it, but we're actually sacrificing our metabolic health even further, because even 2 months into it, the data was coming out where people were exercising a lot less, 50% compared to what they normally were, and eating a lot more processed foods. We're just going off a cliff. I mean, it's like lemmings, we're just following, and because we're all doing the same thing, nobody seems to notice. It's a little bit like we're all just sitting here in this room, but we're all traveling at an incredible speed throughout the universe on our planet. We don't notice it because we're all here together in on the same boat. And that's the thing that I kind of look at. It's like all our kind of unhealthy behaviors have become normalized. I'm always the odd one out when I go anywhere. It's like, what? You don't eat pizza and drink beer? What are you doing? Like, what are you eating strange real food? And it's just, you're the odd one out if you're going to be healthy. It really is kind of a strange thing to kind of take a step back from it and go, wow, is this really the direction we want to be going in? So I'm going to show you a little video. This is going to give you a good taste of the metabolic health program, and in particular the masterclass. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about it afterwards. I'm going to take you on a journey for the search for the Holy Grail.
That is your purpose, Arthur. The quest for the Holy Grail.
Of course, in this case, the Holy Grail is the best diet in the world. There are so many diets to choose from, everything from paleo, pescatarian, vegan, carnivore, vegetarian, low carb, low calorie, zone, etc. So take a moment and go through the list, and just for the fun of it, you choose what you think the best diet in the world is, and then we'll come back and check that in a few moments. So why is it that it's so complicated, and why are there so many diets and practically wars breaking out over which one is the best? The problem is that when somebody goes on a diet program, they're generally looking to achieve some kind of result, to get healthier, fitter, better, to lose weight, etc. And what happens when they go on one of these diets is you have what's called a healthy user bias. So even if you pick any of these diets, you're probably going to get some type of results. And it could be that you cut out a bit of junk food, maybe you started up exercise, etc. There can be so many reasons. And then once you get results, you think, oh wow, this is the answer, I feel better, I'm getting great results. And of course you're going to be enthusiastic and tell your friends. Also what happens is, especially in the world today, is we end up in these echo chambers. So you join groups on social media, etc. And then you're going to get people that go, yeah, this is the best, this is the best. And you get whatever research articles or testimonials, etc. And then of course, if anybody comes up with a different answer, you're going to be a little antagonistic towards them. So that's pretty much, unfortunately, what muddies the waters and makes it very difficult to figure out what the best diet is. The other factors are, it can be very individual. So one person can try a diet, get a great result, and it worked for them, but somebody else could do the same diet, but maybe it doesn't suit them as well. Because we're all different, whether it's slightly different genetics, different microbiome, different level of health, etc. So it's going to vary quite a lot. So I'm going to cut through the chase and tell you out of that list, and it's probably one that almost nobody has guessed, because when you go through that list, one right down the end is, the answer is the Bruce Lee diet. So if you think of martial arts almost like diets, there's so many different martial arts: judo, jiu-jitsu, kempo, taekwondo, karate, etc. And what Bruce Lee did that was different from anyone else, he didn't get stuck in one way of fighting. He actually learned all the different methods, found out what worked best for him, and then he ended up better than anybody else.
You see, actually, I do not teach, karate, because I do not believe in styles anymore. So styles tends to separate men, because they have their own doctrines. If you do not have styles, if you just say, well, here I am, as a human being, how can I express myself?
So he was the true original mixed martial artist, and he was literally the world's best at that. So I have the same approach when it comes to nutrition. Bruce Lee used to wear this medallion his whole life, and on the back of it, it said using no way as way and having no limitation as limitation. And that's absolutely a great way to think about it, because what I find with all these diets, they all have pluses and minuses. But what I am going to do is give you absolutely the fundamentals, the principles to go by, so that you will absolutely, you can even judge these diets based on this, or just go with the principles alone. And that way it'll cut through all the confusion, and hopefully you'll come out the other end absolutely having a very clear understanding of nutrition and the most important things, so that you can achieve the results that you want to get. So the first principle when it comes to nutrition is to stop poisoning yourself, basically. It's incredible how much our diet has changed in the last 150 years. The amount of new foods that we're consuming makes up about 3/4 of the diet compared to the last 200,000 years. And of course, in that time, that's when our metabolic has declined rapidly. 150 years ago, diabetes, obesity, heart disease, cancer, dementia, all these things were almost unheard of, or tiny fractions of what they are today. So what is it that is literally causing all these issues? And of course there are other variables, but if I had to put the number one thing, no question, and I think the research really shows this to be true, is that the amount of ultra-processed food is the big issue. So you can see here, I've got a lot of ultra-processed foods, and that makes up 60 to 70% of the average person's diet in the US today. And what are the components of that that really make it dangerous or make it toxic to the body? So of the ultra-processed food, the number one ingredient that I think is the most toxic, and in fact the research does show this to be true, is sugar. The amount of sugar that we consume has increased dramatically. For instance, in 1700, we were only consuming about 5 grams a day, which is not a whole lot. But then in 1800, that jumped up to 20 grams a day. Still not a huge amount. But then in 1900, we were up to 100 grams of sugar per day. And by the year 2000 or 2009, over 50% of Americans were consuming over 200 grams of sugar per day, which is a colossal amount. So like with any poison, the dose is what makes it poisonous. So what I'm going to do is just show you, roughly speaking, what that looks like. So in a very popular soda, so just in one drink like one of these range between 65 to 77 grams of sugar per container. So roughly speaking, that's about 18 teaspoons of sugar. So just to show you what that looks like here, I'm going to put this in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So there you have it. That's 18 teaspoons, or roughly speaking 70-ish grams of sugar. That's a colossal amount of sugar, and obviously a magnitude more than we were eating a few hundred years ago. And that's just in one soda. When you start including like your cereals and cookies and donuts and other things, like, you are going to consume a huge amount of sugar. In fact, sugar makes up somewhere between 25 to 33% of the average person's diet in America today. So just by eliminating that alone will have a huge difference to your overall health. The fundamental grounding of metabolic health is to get your blood sugar regulated. Now we have 50% of Americans who are either diabetic or pre-diabetic. And also, when you consume a lot of sugar and you get this spike, the body has to produce a lot of insulin, which is the fat storing hormone. And now we're up to 75% of people that are overweight, and almost 45% who are clinically obese. So that's the number one thing to cut from the diet. So again, we're going to eliminate toxins and poisons by taking the sugar out of the diet first. Now, if you really want to delve deeper into the science on sugar, I highly recommend watching Sugar, the Bitter Truth by Dr. Robert Lustig. He goes into it on a molecular basis and really looks at the metabolic health issues of sugar and also how it's very addictive. So it's very important to kind of understand that the first thing you want to do in nutrition is stop putting this toxin in your food. The next thing when it comes to ultra-processed food and the particular ingredients in it that I believe makes it very toxic and almost poisonous in the system is industrial seed oils. Again, like sugar, a few hundred years ago, we were consuming pretty much no industrial seed oils. So these are things like vegetable oils, corn oil, soy oil, sunflower oil, etc. So when you look at these type of oils, first of all, just look at the process that needs to be created to make these in the first place. First of all, it's got to be heated from a separator, go through a bleacher, bleaching filter. It goes through winterization, hydrogenation. It goes through a deodorizer because quite frankly, at the end, the stuff stinks so bad that it needs to be deodorized before people will even touch it. So it's incredibly processed, and the real problem with vegetable oils, with industrial seed oils, is the fact that it's incredibly high in polyunsaturated fats, and they're prone to oxidization. So essentially the way I look at it is this is how to rust your body as quickly as possible, because you're taking in fats that are, quite frankly, are already oxidized before they go in, and then even in the system, they will literally like rust. They will start to oxidize your body very quickly and creates a huge amount of inflammation. And inflammation is pretty much at the root of most diseases. And from our metabolic health perspective, it's awful. Because not only when you consume it is it going to cause that issue, but it will store as fat on the body in the prostaglandins as that type of fat. So again, your whole system is so prone to oxidization. So if you want to stop rusting your body, stop aging your body really fast, then the next thing to cut out after sugar is going to be the industrial seed oils. And that will make another huge difference. Because like sugar, industrial seed oils now make up almost a third of our diets. And it's in everything, every type of sauce. Every time you go to a restaurant, the type of oils they're cooking in, because it's so cheap, unfortunately is going to do that to the system. So after sugar, cut out the industrial seed oils, and that makes a huge difference. And the third ingredient that I would look at after sugar and industrial seed oil is going to be highly processed grains. So things like flour, for example. And again, flour, like sugar, makes up a huge portion of our diet. And although it's not sugar, when you take in refined flours into your system, your blood sugar rises just as quickly, almost as quickly as it does from sugar. So it'll have just as bad of an effect. So when you add those and combine all those three together, it's a complete disaster. My favorite example is a donut. A donut, you're literally putting in sugar, flour, and industrial seed oils, mixing it all together. If I had a death wish on someone, that's exactly what I'm going to give them. The three worst ingredients all together in one packet. So they're the main things that I'm going to look at when it comes to the diet. And quite frankly, any diet that doesn't prioritize those three things, it gets a bad mark in my book. Because really that is the big thing, is how do we reduce the new foods, all of these foods that have toxic effects in high doses in our system and literally is poisoning us. So the number one thing you want to do, reduce the ultra-processed food, watch those three ingredients, get them down to minimal amounts, the same that we consumed maybe like 150 years ago, and then you'll be fine. If anybody asks you what the best diet in the world is, now you know. I love his approach though, because it is true. And I'll be honest, it's one of those things, because again, we should all be on the same page trying to fight metabolic disease, because that's the biggest thing, quite frankly, that we're facing today. And we end up in these tiny little, oh no, it's carnivore, it's vegan, and we're going to fight about that. Look, I mean, we work with people on all these types of diets, no problem, but it's certainly not the priority. So you can do both, but first of all, prioritize these things. And it would be much better if we came together and said, look, let's prioritize this. Let's get our health right back. And that's going to make a vital difference. So this paper just came out this year, and it's one of the best papers I've ever seen in terms of how our diet has changed over the last 200 years. Because it's actually quite difficult to find records and to get really good, accurate information of exactly what we were eating like 100 and especially 200 years ago. But they went to the trouble of doing this, and it was pretty remarkable what they found, because all the things, again, that people are fighting about, whether it's meat or carbs or whatever, that didn't make a difference at all. In fact, some of these things like meat, red meat, we're actually eating less, 44% less than we did 100 years ago. So look, obviously some people prefer not to eat meat, that's fine, but it's certainly not the culprit of the metabolic problems that we're facing today. So if you can really do prioritize those three things, the sugar, industrial seed oils, and then the processed carbs, the flours, etc., that's going to make a vital difference. I mean, wow, if nothing else, if we just stopped there and that was it, and we managed to reverse that, well now, oh wow, it would make a colossal difference. I mean, there's like millions and millions of people dying needlessly every year, way beyond what COVID did. Like you literally need to multiply that by 100 in terms of the impact of metabolic disease. So that is huge, because even something like diabetes alone is responsible for 350,000 deaths a year. So I really kind of wish people wouldn't start fighting about these other things that, look, like I said, it's fine whatever people want to do, but it's not the main thing that's causing the issues today. And that's the big factor. So what they found when they looked at the change in diet was that processed and ultra-processed foods dramatically increased over the past 2 centuries. I mean, no big surprise there, especially sugar, white flour, white rice, vegetable oils, and ready-to-eat meals. Perfect. I love when these studies come out and go, that's spot on. But that's exactly what it is. So they're the things that, honestly, just doing that and nothing else will make a profound difference to your metabolic health. Absolutely huge. What they found was, again, if you look at things like butter, lard, and tallow, which are all the ones that people say, oh, that's the one that's killing us. So again, even 100 years ago, we were eating way more butter, lard, and tallow than we are today. I'm not saying run out and eat copious amounts or anything. I'm just saying, again, that doesn't seem to be at the root cause of the issues. But if you look at shortenings, margarines, they've obviously increased a lot. That's the yellow line there. And then vegetable oils just came in really strong in the mid-1950s, and now that's the main oil that we're taking in today. So what is it about? Because you would think, well, vegetables are healthy, so surely vegetable oil sounds really nice. I like the way they kind of frame it, because a lot of them aren't even from vegetables. I mean, it's like soybean oil, for instance, is a big one. And it doesn't mean like, again, corn oil, sunflower oil. It doesn't mean like if you eat the actual sunflower seeds or some corn, that's the culprit. It's the oils that are produced from it, and the mechanism, those 15 steps, that they're highly treated with high temperature, and high temperature creates those oils become oxidized. And this is the real issue. So again, I talk about it in the video, that's going to rust your body. So if you think of every time you take that, you're literally rusting all the cells in your body, which is going to have a detrimental impact on your metabolic health. And interestingly, this is an amazing piece of research that I've shared with quite a few people, is that when they look at cardiovascular disease, because the big thing is, and how a lot of misinformation, quite frankly, happens, is because they oversimplify. So initially they find, the cardiologists go, oh, the artery's clogged, this is terrible, this is killing people, what is in there? And they find, oh, there's cholesterol there, there's saturated fats or whatever is in there. But actually what this study shows, that in particular, the type of fat that is clogging up the arteries and causing the damage that creates the buildup, is actually linoleic acid. That's from the vegetable oils. So omega-6, linoleic acid oxidized, that's what damages the arteries. And this study is amazing if you want to kind of go in deeper, because that is the thing where I'm like, wow, anytime unfortunately in restaurants, that's the oil that they use for everything. So I try to get things, steamed or boiled or whatever, and avoiding the fats. because unfortunately they're just very cheap industrial seed oils, but they are absolutely a huge culprit. So again, that along with sugar will make a vital difference. And interestingly, with the processed food, now they're showing that that has a huge impact on the brain as well. Again, amazing research just came out, I think it was only a few weeks ago, 3rd of August of this year. Research has linked ultra-processed food to health problems like obesity, etc. But this is a big thing that is showing the mental cognitive decline, again, related to the processed food. So it really is. It's great that all this research is coming out, and every time it comes out, I've got to reshoot that video. No, it's okay. I'll just add it in later. But it really does make a big, big difference. So now we're going to jump on to exercise. Funnily enough, I've been working in sort of health and fitness for about 30 years, and obviously in the gym business, etc., and trained thousands of people. And it's funny, in the last 2 years, I just realized something which kind of sounds strange, is that I've completely underestimated how effective exercise is for your metabolic health. Because I always saw it as sort of like an 80-20, 80% nutrition, 20% exercise. But what's really interesting is, and again, incredible research coming out, and the results that I'm seeing with people, is that exercise is way more effective than I ever thought. So much so that now I'm kind of more looking at it like a 50-50. And if anything, a lot of the research is showing, especially for longevity, that exercise is the #1 effective tool that you can use to have much better metabolic health and literally live longer. So I'm going to show you a little video, because everyone always asks, well, what's the best exercise to do? What's the best type of workout to do? So I'm going to show you this, and I'll talk about it more afterwards. So if we were to design the best workout in the world, the ultimate workout, what would it be? So the first thing that I would ask is, what is exercise? It sounds like a strange question, but not many people know the answer. And even so-called experts don't even start with that question. Exercise is a stressor. Now in biology, this is known as hormesis, the hormonal response to the stress. And it looks like this, where it starts out where you get this beneficial effect from the stress as the body adapts and you release lots of positive hormones. But then if you put too much stress or prolonged stress, it actually starts to become a negative, where it releases negative hormones. So let's look at this more closely and see how we can get the most of the beneficial impact of hormesis. If you do no movement whatsoever, you're just sitting, standing, and you're not moving, then obviously there's no stress in the body, so therefore no results. But if you start to apply more stress, in other words, you're moving around, you could be jogging, that type of exercise, then that's kind of moderate stress, so then you get moderate results. Now, if you lift the heaviest weight that you can or run as fast as you can, you're maximizing the stress, and therefore you're maximizing the benefits. Now, the stress in this case when it comes to exercise is the intensity of the exercise. And that is the total key to results, intensity. So what are the benefits if you train at high intensity? Well, the first positive hormone that you release is what's called growth hormone. Now, this is called a fountain of youth because it's something that we have a huge amount of when we're much younger, and then as we age, it starts to diminish. Now, growth hormone is what burns fat, it increases muscle tissue, bone density, skin thickness, elasticity, and energy levels, pretty much everything that we want. Now, what's interesting in the research, it shows that if you do moderate exercise, so you go for running or cycling, you'll increase it 133 to 166%. But when you start to put more stress, so say for instance you're lifting a weight that's about 70% of your maximum, then you're going to release 300% more growth hormone. And if you keep going where you're lifting 85%, you're barely able to get about 7 reps and then you won't be able to do any more, then you release 400% more growth hormone. Now, if you can maintain that level of intensity for a 20-minute workout, overall, you're going to get 771% increase in growth hormone, which is amazing. Another hormone that you release through high-intensity workout is what's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF for short. This is an incredible hormone because it improves your brain in pretty much every way. So it improves your memory, your focus, your concentration, and your mood levels. It's even protective against neurological diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So Dr. John Rady, he's a Harvard neuropsychiatrist, and he calls it miracle grow for the brain because it's so impactful on our brain development. Now, what's interesting in the research is that when people exercised at low intensity for 45 minutes, they only increased BDNF by 1%, not a whole lot. But when they increased that to medium intensity, but for less duration, so they were only doing 35 minutes, now BDNF jumps up 7%, which is a huge amount more. But of course, the high intensity group, what they did was only 25 minutes and they got an increase of 19%. That's amazing. You're literally 20% smarter. I mean, if you could put this in the pill, it would be the limitless pill. So now we know all the advantages of training with high intensity. But let's zoom back out again and look at hormesis. And let's try to avoid the downside of this, because prolonged stress does release a lot of stress hormones, in particular cortisol. Now, prolonged elevated levels of cortisol actually causes muscle wastage and fat storage, especially around the midsection, the exact opposite of what we want from exercise. Also, it can cause the body to slow down and make you hungrier because it's trying to recover from all that stress. Interestingly, in 2013, in the journal Heart, cardiologists found that people that did a lot of marathon runs, excessive running, they found that their arteries had hardened, stiffened, and calcified. They literally accelerated the aging of the heart. The researchers concluded that the heart is actually designed for short bouts of high-intensity exercise. Unfortunately, the vast majority of exercise programs are purely designed based on how many calories they burn. They completely ignore the science and biology of hormesis. These chronic cardio-style workouts, they don't optimize the benefits, and the prolonged stress actually will reduce those benefits even further, and in some cases can do more harm than good. The two most popular styles of exercises to do is either cardio or strength training. So let's look at both and see. So cardio, which is short for cardiovascular training, is when you've got an elevated heart rate for a period of time. And that means your heart is pumping fast. So obviously it's great for heart health. Also, your lungs are going because you got to get oxygen through the system. So there's clearly a lot of good benefits for your heart and lungs. So interestingly, there's been a lot of research showing that as little as 10 minutes of high intensity or HIIT training when it comes to cardio is just as effective as almost an hour of traditional style cardio. So you really can get all the benefits of cardio in a lot less time. And of course, if you do it at high intensity for 15 to 20 minutes, then you're also going to get the added benefits of the increase of growth hormone and BDNF. Now, interestingly, with cardio exercise, you can apply it to a lot of different styles of exercise. So obviously you can go running, you can go cycling, swimming, you can use an elliptical machine, etc. Now, what's to stop you from getting a cardio workout while you do strength training? The strength training has even more benefits than cardio exercise. Aside from the obvious that it's going to increase your muscle, your strength, and your bone density, it's also incredibly good for your metabolic health because when you activate more muscle fibers, it recruits more mitochondria, and that equates to even having much better blood sugar response and blood pressure. Now, traditional strength training, they will recommend to do 45 minutes to an hour, taking a lot of rests between exercises and sets. So can you really get all of those benefits in a higher intensity resistance training for as little as 15 to 20 minutes? Now, there hasn't been as much research on this compared to cardio, but in 2018, the American Council of Exercise, they put together an amazing team of researchers to see whether or not this is possible. So what did they find? Well, they highlighted 3 takeaways from the research. The first was that the results were actually as good as or better in the shorter 20-minute high-intensity group compared to the 45-minute group. The second point that they highlighted was the obvious, where you're going to save a lot of time when you work out like this. And then the third takeaway was not only were the results as good as or better, but they got the results in a lot less time. In half the time, so it only took 3 weeks for the high-intensity training group to get the results, where it took 6 weeks in the traditional form of 45 minutes. This is truly remarkable. You really can get both a cardio workout and a strength workout in a whole lot less time, 15 to 20 minutes a few times a week. That's less than an hour exercise a week. But if you were to follow the standard recommendations, you'd have to do all your strength training, 2 to 3 hours, all your cardio separately, another 3 hours every week. So the difference is phenomenal. But now hopefully you understand, because of the science, because of hormesis, that you truly can get these results in a lot less time. Every time I go into the gym, sometimes I train out where I live out in PV, and by the time everyone's doing their warm-up, I've finished my workout. And on average, it's about 7 to 12 minutes. This morning it was 11, so roughly speaking, that's about it. And I do that about 3 to 4 times a week, and then that's it. And I'm always fascinated how this information hasn't kind of got out further, that people aren't onto this, because it really does. I mean, it sounds like there's no way you could get all your cardio, all your strength training benefits that would normally take 5 or 6 hours a week in less than an hour. But it really is true. And if you understand that what exercise is hormesis, that a certain amount of the right type is going to get you the results, but too much of the wrong type, then that stress can actually counteract the benefits. So that alone, again, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'd like to exercise, just don't have the time. But most people have 10 minutes, you know, it's not a lot of time. Brush your teeth, 2 minutes, 10 minutes workout, you're done, that's it. And it's awesome, because when you work out with that intensity, aside from all the normal benefits that you get from cardio and strength, you do get those added benefits of the BDNF for the brain, the growth hormone, etc. It's amazing. I'm really shocked that more people aren't onto this, but I'd love for more people to find, you know, that type of information, because it really does make a huge difference. And then the last little video that I'm going to show you now, and this is something that I kind of started about 10 years ago getting interested in and starting to do a little bit. But again, more so, I've really understood the benefits in the last couple of years, because a lot of people go, oh yeah, but I want to train for a marathon, I want to do longer distance or whatever, I want to go on long hikes. What would you suggest? And again, there's a huge amount of misinformation on that. So I'm going to show you this, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Energy is life. When you're low in energy, your mood level drops, you have less motivation, it's easier to get annoyed and get depressed. When your energy is high, you feel great. It's easy to be positive, motivated, and productive. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have endless energy? I mean, so much so that you could literally go running all day without stopping. It sounds impossible. It's a little bit like the movie Forrest Gump, where one day he just decided to go out and run, and he just kept running day after day, week after week, month after month. Now, of course, that's a fictional movie, but it could have been based on a real-life character, Stu Mittelman. Now, Stu Mittelman was amazing. He held all these records, the 100-mile runs between 1980 to 1982. In 1986, he won the 1,000-mile race in 11 days. That's the equivalent of 3.5 marathons every single day. He actually ran coast to coast, all the way from San Diego to New York, 3,000 miles in 56 days. So I mean, is he just a total freak of nature, or is there a science behind this? He worked with Dr. Phil Maffetone, who discovered this incredible magic zone that would optimize the stamina system that could get you incredibly fit at a lower heart rate. Interestingly, everybody else was working out too hard and too fast. They literally ran right by this zone. If only they had slowed down, they'd be faster by now. He discovered that by training in this zone, as you get fitter and fitter at a lower heart rate zone, then when you go out on race day, you have an almost unfair advantage compared to everybody else. In fact, this is what the absolute elite athletes, the top 1%, use. So they're actually training at an easier rate than everybody else. But what's great about this is that you can use this just to improve your energy levels and your metabolic health. So think of this as a hidden reservoir of energy that we haven't tapped into yet. So here is the secret. We have two very distinct, completely different energy systems in the body. The first one is the strength system. The strength uses glucose or sugar as energy, and this is stored in the muscle and the liver as glycogen. Then it is used through the type 2 or fast twitch muscle fibers, which is about half the muscle on our body, and converted into energy. About 99% of workouts are designed using that energy system, regardless of whether it's strength or cardio. And we store about 2 to 3 hours of that energy in the body before we hit the wall and just literally run out of energy and feel awful. But there's a totally different system of energy that uses fat as energy. Now this is the stamina system. And what this uses is fat as energy breaks down into fatty acids, is oxygenated in the slow twitch or the type 1 muscle fiber. Now what's interesting about this is we have a huge amount of stores of fat on our body. Some of us would like to have a little bit less, but even if you're very lean, you have weeks of non-stop running of this type of energy. Most exercise programs, they don't optimize for either of these energy systems. They're generally going at too high of an intensity for the stamina system, and then they're not intense enough for the strength system. So they fall down in the middle in no man's land, or what we call chronic cardio. And they are producing a lot of stress, because exercise is a stressor on the body. It's what's called hormesis. So a certain amount of stress gives you the positive benefits, but then too much, you're going to end up with negative benefits. So the chronic cardio produces way too much cortisol, which counteracts the benefits of exercise. So please avoid falling into that trap of chronic cardio. Now the beauty of the magic zone that optimizes the stamina system is that it's actually below the stress threshold. Also, while you do this type of exercise, you're optimizing all the type 1 or slow twitch muscle in the body, which is half the muscle fibers in the body. So you're recruiting more mitochondria and improving your metabolic health, which is going to help burn fat, help your energy levels, blood sugar, blood pressure, etc. So that is fantastic to be able to get all of those benefits without the stress. Now you combine this with the strength system from the ultimate workout, which is all the type 2 muscle fibers. Now, quite frankly, you will have energy that you never thought was even possible. It's pretty profound because you've got incredible bursts of energy and you've got amazing stamina all in one. And if you wanted the ultimate exercise, you would combine these two systems, optimize for both, and honestly, you'll never look back. You can apply this type of magic zone training to any type that you want. So you can use an elliptical machine, you can use a treadmill, you can use a bike. But it's a sunny day here in Southern California. So let's go outside and I'll show you how to apply this so that you can tap into that vast reservoir of endless energy. I really underestimated this, to be honest, and I'm incorporating it more and more into my own training. Because now, like I said in the video, half the muscle is type 1, and that's for the stamina, and then half is for that strength system. And if you get both, from a metabolic health perspective, it is off the charts. It really is. Like, you're activating all the mitochondria inside the cells, and that's what's going to give you incredible metabolic health. I mean, you literally have energy that you just never thought was possible. So if you wanted to get the absolute maximum, you'd combine those two. Now, with the Maffetone method, or the stamina system, as I call it, it's very easy to do because, like I said, it's below the stress threshold. All you need to do is literally go for a walk. And interestingly, this piece of research came out April 22, so only a few months ago, and they looked at 400,000 people in the UK. And what they found was, what they were looking at is people that did a lot of walking, the impact on health. And in particular, what they were looking at was longevity, because anybody that kind of knows a little bit about life extension or longevity, a big thing in research is they look at what's called the telomeres. So this is sort of something that's in the cells, that every time the cells split, then the telomeres get shorter. And generally that's about for 7 splits, and then that's it, and that's how long we live. So the longer the telomeres, the better. Now, what they found was, in this research, was that people who did brisk walking, faster walking, compared to just a normal slow pace going for a stroll, their telomeres were much, much longer. So much so that biologically, they were 16 years younger. I mean, that is phenomenal. So literally, when you're going for a walk, all you got to do is bring up the pace a little bit more. But again, it's below that stress threshold, which is exactly that stamina system. So it's like a fast walk, slow run. That's exactly getting that perfect heart rate zone that's going to give you all those benefits. So that sounds pretty awesome to me. 16 years younger, just because you're going a little bit faster when you go for your walk. So there is that amazing magic zone that if you tap into that, it'll have a profound impact. The other thing about this is that if you continuously do it, because what I find is, first few days you're just sort of getting used to it, getting into it, but then suddenly you'll notice that your energy throughout the day is much, much better. Your oxygen system, and that's the fat burning system, it uses fat as energy, so that you do feel more stamina, and you just have way more energy, for instance, at the end of the day, just as much as you did at the beginning of the day. So it really is fantastic. So when you do this after a few weeks, you'll notice that you really do have this extra energy all the time. But after a few months, that's where it starts to impact the cells and the mitochondria, to the point that your blood sugar response is so much better. Because they used to say, well, you can't outrun a bad diet. But if you do this type of exercise, your blood sugar response becomes so good that if you did consume more sort of high glycemic carbohydrates, even if it was like rice and flour and stuff like that, that you'd be able to handle that so much better. And that's why, elite athletes like Michael Phelps, these types of people, they can eat a colossal amount of pasta and carbohydrates, and their blood sugar is absolutely no problem. They will be able to manage it. I'm not suggesting you eat, this is your excuse to eat really bad food, but you get both things going in the right direction. Oh, wow, results truly incredible. And I don't think any of the things that I'm covering today is that extreme. Like, what am I saying? Okay, yeah, you stop taking in ultra-processed food that's killing us all, okay? We go back to more of a natural diet. We managed to do it for a couple of 100,000 years, so I don't think it's impossible. We even did it 100 years ago. You combine that with a little bit of fast walking, so, okay, you pick up the pace a little bit, but again, below the stress threshold. You throw in a little bit of high-intensity resistance training, 10, 15 minutes a few times a week, and now you're going to have absolutely incredible metabolic health. So it's very accessible to pretty much anybody, and we have people in their training in their 70s and as young as 15, 16. So it doesn't matter what age you are, where you're at, you can absolutely apply this. Now, the big thing is, okay, it's fine, you come in here, you listen to this, but then you go back out, and it's like the gravity is going to pull you in the wrong direction, because again, it's normalized all the unhealthy behaviors. So it's always like where you go out and then you're going to see all this ultra processed food, and well, which ultra processed food would you like? So there is this kind of touch where you kind of have to kind of go, well, do I really want that for me? Is that the type of life that I want? Because I think we're sacrificing a huge amount in terms of the type of lives that we can have, the energy, the vibrancy, even your mental health, your outlook. You've got this huge potential. I mean, we're on this planet for, a few decades, a short period of time, and you really want to make the most of it. You want to have the best possible life. And it's really strange, because when you look at it, if you're an alien and you land on this planet, what's wrong with these people? They're all poisoning themselves, they're not doing the right things, and they're living their lives not even close to their potential. And that's always been my passion. It's like, I found it made such a huge difference to me. I felt so lucky to have people to kind of put me on the right path. And it's always been my passion to kind of share this with people. And that is really my kind of wish for everybody here and anybody who's watching, is that, look, it really doesn't take that much. But yeah, you're going to have to put in some effort initially just to change your habits. Once you got the new habits, just stick there. And remember, everyone else is crazy, not you, okay? They're all crazy, not you. They're rusting and rotting their bodies. They're putting in all these toxins in. They're either not exercising or maybe not quite optimizing it. But you've now got the secret, and at least you've got the choice. And that's always the thing that I wanted to say, okay, at least I can pass that on to people, that they've got the choice. And like I said, it doesn't matter what age you are. So last one slide I wanted to show is Tyler here. Tyler's my stepson. A few years ago in 2019, I was like, wow, he's looking a little bit pre-diabetic, if you ask me. He's on PlayStation 24/7. He's not doing much exercise. He's consuming all these ultra-processed foods. Wow, what kind of life is that going to lead to? I mean, unfortunately, and again with teenagers, like depression and obesity and diabetes is huge, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And then what's going to happen the rest of their lives? So I just dragged him, said, come on out here, let's go for a workout. He goes, what, a workout? No. And now I can't stop him. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal. You just motivate people. Initially, all they did was replace the ultra-processed food with a little bit less processed, almost without him noticing. So instead of him having a soda, I'd get a soda, but maybe it's just got like stevia or something like that, and that's the first good step. And you just gradually make these changes. And before he knew it, he probably wasn't even aware, but he was eating a healthy diet. And now I can't stop him. He's like, okay, when can we train? What about this? Can I do this exercise? Can I do more? It's unstoppable. So this is amazing for kids. So if you've got kids, teenagers, doesn't matter what age, they're very susceptible to this. And you can really set them up on the right path forever. And then, there's no stopping Tyler. You can talk to him afterwards. He'll tell you all this himself. It's pretty remarkable. So I really feel like this is for anybody and everybody. And with the program, obviously it's available for everybody. I do have a free version just to get some of the main points across, because like I said, I'd love to get this out to as many people as possible. Like, we really need this. And I don't know why. I mean, yeah, like some research is coming out, but this should be on the front cover of every newspaper or whatever online thing that people look at. This should be the number one thing. As a species of humanity, is this really the direction that we want to go in? Just continuing down this path of it's terrible. It really is. And we've got this amazing potential to have literally endless energy, positive outlook in life, and have so much more that you feel like, wow, I've really tapped into my full potential, and it's been amazing. So listen, thank you very much. I won't hold you up any further. Thank you very much for coming along. Really appreciate it, and hope you learned something today that's going to genuinely make a lasting impact. Thank you very much.